I want to give a brief explanation as to what this video is, because at no point do I actually really explain it. I was very sick while making this, and I'm still not doing too great. But this video is sort of a personal story about how at the beginning of this year I started trying to get into content creation, and then I was hit by sudden health problems that pulled me away from all that. And Peggle is not actually the topic of the video. It's sort of just a coincidentally reoccurring element of the story. And obviously, as a result of the fact that I made this while I'm, not exactly in top shape, it really shows, you can tell. So it's very disjointed, it's not well structured, and it's basically just the ramblings of a madman. But I hope you'll stick around and push through it, because it took a lot to make it. So thank you for watching. Hey, what's up? I wanted to write a long and clever intro for this video, but in the middle of writing I was hit with a whole heap of worrying health issues, so now I'm recording these lines with a heart monitor on. And now you may have noticed a drop in voiceover quality. That's because I had to move in with people who could keep an eye on me in case I drop dead, so I have to record this with a top-of-the-line Razer Kraken headset. This was originally going to be some Seth Steentech inspired Peggle review that I would pour my heart and soul into, but then my heart and soul collectively decided to stop working properly, and now this video is basically a memoir about trying to make the video in spite of mysterious health problems. So if you're here for some over-the-top like and subscribe personality-infused video essay or whatever, then you're going to be let down, so sorry about that. And if you don't want to stick around too long, let me just give you a quick summary of what this video is going to be. I'm going to explain my confident attempt at following my Zoomer dreams of having a sizable internet following on YouTube and Twitch, and how it was swept away by health circumstances I couldn't control. I'm going to try and use this ongoing hellish experience as a way of convincing you to start spending your time doing the things that will pull you closer to your dreams, as cliche as it sounds. And despite keeping most of the personal details to myself, I'll probably end up doing some personal rants into the void about my condition and how it's affecting me, because I need to complain. You know how it is. Also, big disclaimer, since I barely have the energy to speak into a microphone, I can't really put the full capacity of my subpar editing skills into this video, so most of the editing will probably just be random Peggle gameplay since I have a lot of footage of that. We're going to start with the most uncomfortable part of this little discussion, which is context as to who I am. I'm nobody, but you can call me Zach. Please don't call me Killerwatt, I hate being called my username, and if you do that, I will mail you 2,500 spores of anthrax. There's not really anything about me you need to know as a prerequisite for this story, other than the fact that I always wanted to be a YouTuber. Ever since I first saw How to Be Ninja and Forest Fire's Lego Batman,
what is Willis talking about?
I always knew that making videos was something I wanted to do. And I did make a few attempts. Back then I sounded like a gibbon stuck in a dishwasher, so I doubt many people stuck around. The main thing about me though is, like everyone from my generation, I've got a lot of issues. This led to me becoming more and more apathetic towards my own dreams as time went on. Now, I'm not going to sit here and self-diagnose a bunch of random things to score points with slightly younger Zoomers. That's not really something I adhere to. But acknowledging that I have mental health issues is an important tidbit of info to help you understand why I really never pursued my dreams sooner. Obviously, when you're a teen, you have a lot of free time, and it stands to reason that you should spend that time giving yourself the biggest boost towards your prospects as you can, which is why no one ever does that, and instead we all sit around playing Lego Indiana Jones all day. But one thing worth mentioning is that depression and anxiety play a big role in preventing us from doing things we want to, regardless of how beneficial they would be. Again, I'm not here to give a lecture on the ins and outs of mental health, because I trust that most of us understand the gist of how depression affects our ability to do things. And in the end, this is a video about some guy who had to stop streaming Deus Ex because he thought he was having a heart attack. But I do want to set the scene a bit. I had reached a point in my life where everything that took time to commit to started to scare me. Glancing at my Steam library and imagining opening up the games and playing them actually made me scared, as if it would take years off my precious short time on Earth just to put another hour into Worms. If I had to put on my pseudo-psychiatrist hat for a bit, I would guess that this feeling is a remnant of school stress and how I felt like I needed to get the most out of the afternoon before I had to get back the next day, but that's all just an assumption. As I'm sure you can imagine, or have possibly experienced, this type of anxiety is quite paralyzing and often results in you sticking to activities that give you constant dopamine with zero downtime, like watching YouTube videos or maybe watching YouTube videos. As a side note, this is probably a big reason why I'm very bothered by the influx of internet brain rot that has captivated so many young kids, because they're still young enough to appreciate things that actually take time investments, but they spend that time as if they've barely got any left to experience content. Even as adults, we're certainly not immune to the effects that watching too much content on YouTube and doom scrolling can have, and it's for that reason that I can barely relate to some of my fellow Zoomers who find nothing funnier than to just quote popular things at each other. But that doesn't mean I'm immune or even much better. And this spiral of just needing more and more dopamine prevented me from being able to commit to the hobbies I wanted to invest in, such as music, drawing, 3D modeling, game development, and of course, literally just playing video games. This feeling of what was essentially terror at the idea of partaking in my own hobbies had started to eat away at my life over the course of half a decade, and that's why this specific period of time where I started trying to make this video was so important to me. Without sacrificing personal details, I had done small bits of work to better myself mentally and physically. I was still far away from large commitments like the gym and getting a life, but it all started to seem a bit less impossible. And this was mainly due to a lot of internal dialogue where I sort of walked myself through simple ways of treating myself better and recognizing that any negative feelings I was directing towards myself were just self-perpetuating my cycle of never getting anything done. Now I know all of that sounds like, and then I woke up one day and I cured myself through positive thinking, which is probably something you've been told to do a lot, but I promise that's not what I'm saying, and the results of this change weren't anything exponential. The main thing of note is that I just understood there were certain ways I could make very small changes to push myself towards a better life. Like not giving myself the opportunity to overindulge in unhealthy eating by just not getting anything unhealthy from the store. I know that probably sounds like an obvious solution, but you should keep in mind that I'm very stupid. The main reason this is important though is because I decided to start making short nudges towards my original dream of winning the internet lottery and becoming a YouTuber with a sizable amount of followers. And so the stage was set. I made OBS a startup program to force myself to look at it every day. I made myself spend at least a few minutes a day, which you have to understand felt like a huge commitment, editing my super ugly overlays and getting my stream set up. I gave myself the goal that right after the holidays, I would start doing weekly live streams. Now obviously live streams aren't the same as making YouTube videos, so let me back up and explain my thought process, since if you watch this far, I assume you're stuck here for the long run. Sometime the year before, I had started watching YouTubers who were also live streamers, and I was very enthused by how they could turn their streams into digestible videos with flowing stories and a fair amount of drama. Now, I've always had some interest in the medium and a fascination with the level of interactivity with the audience, seeing streamers not just talk, but involve their audience in the content simply by talking to their chat or having them directly influence the stream was always such an amazing characteristic unique to live streams. Seeing how spur-of-the-moment ideas could turn into long-lasting inside jokes or characters when watching Vinesauce, Doug, Varkskeletthor, and Darkside Phil really clicked with me during 2024. And I realized that live streaming would allow me to stick closer to my natural sense of improvised humor and help me avoid having to write jokes in advance in video scripts, like I'm trying to do right now. I could then take these streams and find a storyline within them to turn into a video, and that would keep me from staring into the void thinking of video ideas. These realizations inspired me to finally start pursuing YouTube as a Twitch streamer style YouTuber, and after the holidays of 2024 passed, I was free from any form of commitments. I picked a random schedule of Thursdays and Saturdays and decided I was forcing myself to adhere to it. Now this will probably end up being the most positive part of this video, which means it will likely be the least important to the overall subject. But I want to share the details of how my journey kicked off and all of the positive effects it had. Now obviously when you start streaming you will have 0 viewers, and at no point in this short retelling do I ever magically gain a single viewer that wasn't just someone I know. Again, it's worth reiterating that this is not a happy story. For the first stream, I decided to pick a game that would cause me 0 technical issues and that a brainlet like me would spend hours trying to beat. And thus we get to the former subject of this video, Peggle. The first stream is as nerve-wracking and as embarrassing as you think it will be, and mine had to be carried by my one viewer, a friend of mine who decided that instead of making small talk, he would just sit there and trash talk my Peggle skills throughout the stream. If you're partially hoping to leave this video with some nugget of streaming advice, then I would say having a friend in your chat is invaluable. This made it so much easier to talk and improvise embarrassingly bad jokes, and this also ended up making me more invested in the stream and really putting my best effort into the game. Now picking Peggle as a first choice led to an unforeseen obstacle, one that I never actually ended up solving. That year my computer had begun having issues running games that were way below its pay grade, and I couldn't find a solution to the problem. To avoid this on stream, I elected to stick to games that were so old even a leapfrog leaptop could run them at smooth 60. Unfortunately, I never considered that this unforeseen hardware issue, plus the dubious internet quality provided by my shady ISP, would affect my stream quality. And for most of the games I tried streaming, my stream would be more akin to a PowerPoint presentation than an actual live stream. This issue brought down my confidence by a lot, since the first few times an extra viewer would pop in, it would always be right in the midst of many technical difficulties. And even my own friends were becoming a lot less interested in watching, since it would take their messages half a lifetime to appear. Regardless of these issues though, I convinced myself that since I was just starting out, it didn't make any sense to stress over things that people wouldn't see, and I should instead focus on getting to a stage where I actually had an audience to disappoint. I knew that live streaming alone wouldn't give me much success, but YouTube had always been my end goal, and now I saw making videos as a way of funneling people to the streams. I started out basic by making some YouTube shorts, and please for the love of God, do not go and watch them, they are terrible. I quickly learned that my commitment anxiety had still been affecting me in ways I didn't really consider. See, if you're a novice editor like me, then every task takes at least twice as long for you to complete compared to someone who actually knows their way around editing software. And this means that even when you have an idea for a visual, it doesn't always come out right. Now, if you really take your time and take note of what makes the edits look wrong or what you might need to spend more time on, then I truly believe you can make nice looking edits. But in my case, I saw this as something that would eat up my precious time on this earth, and so I'd always end up rushing through it. And if you look at the shorts I made, you can easily see that even something as simple as panning across the screen will look random and unprofessional. This caused me to sit back and try and reassess my way of editing, but it occurred to me that part of my lack of investment wasn't just anxiety alone, it was a lack of interest in the actual clips I was editing. I hadn't hit my stride as a streamer yet and probably wouldn't for a long time. Any of the cool moments or funny stories I told were so awkward in their delivery that even if I spent forever on the editing, they still wouldn't be too interesting. A story I think is a bit funny is one I told about my encounter with a certain Dutch fellow and their misunderstanding of a certain joke, but I told this story in such an awkward way that even when edited down to a short clip, it's not very funny, and the short I posted even received some dislikes, probably from the few people in the Netherlands who aren't underwater. While earlier on in the journey this perspective might have caused me to just quit, I instead decided to refocus my efforts on one single video. I would force myself to work on every aspect until I could no longer self-critique. This would force me to spend more time on each individual piece of editing and writing, and the prospect of it being a full video would keep me from becoming apathetic to the project. Since it was the one game that never let me down, I decided that I would make the video a humorous tribute and review to the Peggle series. And this is where the story derails. I typed the first few words of a script, I collected footage I didn't already have from my streams, I wrote overviews of the script structure, I even planned out some jokes I could make. But of course, no amount of prep work can prevent your life from turning completely upside down. Randomly one night while typing away, my chest started to tighten up. I decided that it was probably just suffering indigestion, and I ignored it, going to bed a few hours later, but then the next day, it was worse. Despite all of that, I still assumed a few antacids and some time would be enough to get rid of it. I spent the whole day like normal until evening, which is when other symptoms appeared. My chest had gotten so tight I could barely breathe, and my head started to feel numb, which made it difficult to concentrate. The strangest symptom was my left arm, which had started to feel extremely heavy, and it would randomly twitch. In retrospect, it's very obvious that what happened next was likely just an anxiety attack as a reaction to my symptoms, but as the symptoms worsened and I struggled to breathe or even stand, I genuinely thought I was about to die. My friend called me an ambulance who couldn't do much other than give me an EKG and tell me I'm fine, or at least that my heart was. And luckily for me, I'd just been up so late at that point that I managed to pass out once I was back inside. Again though, I was worse the next day. I could barely even sit up straight without feeling like I was falling through the floor while also suffocating from the knot in my chest. After another few nights of my condition getting worse, I eventually landed in the ER, where I probably shouldn't have mentioned the anxiety attacks as a main issue, since they diagnosed my entire condition as just anxiety. Now in all fairness, this makes sense. All of these symptoms can be caused by anxiety, and it's very obvious I have a history of the condition. But in retrospect, I should have considered the possibility that it was a genuine physical condition more during its beginning stages. My heart was checked that same week at a clinic where they discovered I have arrhythmia, hence the heart monitor at the beginning of the video. Unfortunately, I now know that my arrhythmia is unrelated to my current issues, and wearing that uncomfortable hunk of plastic and getting the silhouette of those electrodes permanently etched in my torso was a bit pointless. Fast forward many months later to now, and the intensity and the amount of symptoms has increased a lot, and I'm becoming a lot more pessimistic about this situation. What seemed like something where I could just take some pills and get back to doing what I love has turned into a life-changing event. I have to stay with people who can keep an eye on me, I can barely get up during most days without feeling like everyone's favorite frame of the Zapruder film, and all the while this idea of this video and my live streams are floating in the back of my head. It's tough not to be a bit upset, feeling like you're on the right path that leads to your biggest goal and then having it locked away for what seems like forever. It sucks, and I'm not going to pretend like my optimism has survived all this, because it really hasn't. Laying down all day and hoping that the headaches are just manageable enough that you can sit at a computer and type some sentences for your video, which has now turned into more of a memoir where you shake your fist at your circumstances, it's not something I'd wish on anyone. And I won't pretend like it's the worst anyone has ever had to put up with, because I know there's always someone suffering more. But I think we all know how little that knowledge helps to push us forward. It's at this point that I must confess that I really don't know what the point of this video is, other than me hoping someone out there has the patience to sit through it and enjoy listening to me complain. Maybe they'll share it around and there'll be a small piece of the world who feel for me in my situation, but I don't want it to be that pointless. So I'd like to say that if you suffer from those same paralyzing feelings that keep you from acting, just count down from 10 and start. Once you start, you'll gain focus for what you're doing. Starting a game by telling yourself you're just going to check the graphics settings only to then pour in a bunch of hours is a way better method than just telling yourself to start a game. For me, it was all about hitting the start stream button, because once you're in, you have no choice but to act in the moment instead of being afraid. After you jump, the biggest obstacle will just be keeping yourself away from things that will ruin your flow and make you want to quit. Just like I did with poor eating habits, don't give yourself the chance to mess up. Turn off your notifications if you have to, or maybe switch off any other monitors. Once you set yourself up for the best chance of success, all you really have to do to succeed is keep trying. I knew my content wasn't great, but I also understood that the main difference between me and a failed streamer was that they failed, and the only way to fail at content creation was to stop trying. I hope that, for those of you who aren't stumbling around in pain every day, the advice I just spitballed give you some level of hope for whatever you're trying to do. Not to be a doomer, but I'm starting to get the sense that it's too late for me to succeed. The most well-known symptom of medical issues is the chunk it takes from your wallet, and for the first time in my life, I'm in debt. So it's very unlikely that I'll be able to afford the internet bill required for streaming, even if my issues get resolved soon. And don't worry, I'm not going to e-beg or anything. I don't think that'd be a very good way to cap off this slog of a video. None of this means I'll stop though. The whole time I've been out of commission, all I can think about is streaming and YouTube and how much I really wish I could continue. And to those of you that have stuck around until the end, post me a comment giving me your opinion on this video, good or bad. I hope you'll still be here when I get better. I hope I can even finish this memoir video so you can see it. And if you are seeing it, I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I can come back soon. I hope. So I'm recording this after I've finished editing everything. I'm doing a bit better. My headaches have kind of slowed down, almost gone away completely. There's actually a bunch of new symptoms I have now that are very scary, but they don't, I'm still able to get up and move around. It feels like I'm pushing myself when I do, but I can still do it, you know. I can kind of pretend like things are normal. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because, you know, if I have a day where I feel good enough, I would like to try and do another live stream. So if you would be interested in seeing that, whenever it may happen, could be now, it could be, you know, a million years away. But I hate to ask, but you could honestly probably hit the notification bell and I'll make a community post or something like that. If, you know, I guess sound off in the comments if you're interested. I know it's a cringy request to make, but I'll have no way of knowing. Yeah, I'm hoping that I can get my setup, you know, back to where it was, at least at the time. None of the hardware issues have been resolved, so it's the streams are still going to be running like trash. If you send anything in chat, it'll probably take me a million years to see it, but I will see it eventually. And all the games are probably just going to be more Peggle, I guess. It's really really old games. Maybe I'll play Lemonade Tycoon, if any of you remember that. But yeah, I'm doing it worse in some ways and better in other ways. But it's at a point where I'm able to. I feel like I could probably try and live stream, but you know, there's all these factors. I'm staying with other people, so there's gonna be a lot of background noise. I might get called away. There's all this, you know. There's all these other things that could go wrong, and there's stuff that definitely will go wrong. You know, it's possible I might stream for 5 minutes and then feel awful and have to stop. But hopefully, you know, I'll get an opportunity soon, and I can do a live stream. And hopefully, if you've watched this far in the video, you'll show up. I know time zones can make it difficult. But I'll try and do it at the same times that I always did, Fridays and Saturdays. I should have the time posted somewhere. If not, leave a comment and I'll let you know. But yeah, if I start again, you know, hopefully you go and check it out whenever it happens. And if you do want to see an actual review of Peggle, I guess maybe I could try making one of those if I feel up to it. Thank you for sticking around. I know this end of it is very rambly. It's obviously not scripted, so I'm recording this very last minute. Thank you for watching, and I'll try to respond to any comments and anything like that. I'll see you later, I hope.